Hey, FlowChat connector. In this video, I'm going to break down one of the most advanced NLP techniques called representational systems in high ticket sales. Stay tuned. Not going to want to miss this one. Yo, FlowChat connector, Sean here, back at you with another high ticket tune-up. Ready to get good, ready to get sharp, ready to get fast. Let's go. Today, I'm so excited. We get to talk about representational systems, which is one of the, I guess, the bases of NLP, but also one of the most advanced techniques that we can go through and walk. And so I think this is going to be pretty powerful for you if you've never had an introduction to NLP or have never had a coach or anything like that. This is going to be a very quick walkthrough overview. It can give you some pro tips at the end of how to apply this stuff in your world day to day when you're doing high ticket sales. So let's get started. The question came from Stuart. Stuart asked me this. He said, Sean, I've heard of personality profiles. Are they the same as modalities? And if you don't know what the word modality is, it's very simply just a way that somebody learns something, right? Or they absorb something, or they teach something, or even they conversate in a certain modality versus a personality profile. See, personality profiling, there's lots of different systems. There's like the bank code, and then there's like DISC and extended DISC and colors and Myers-Briggs and all these other ones that are out there, which is personality profiling. And you can use that stuff, but that's kind of personality profile, and then learning modality or modalities are kind of two different things. So let's talk through each one of these things because I think it's going to be valuable for you. So as we dive into the slideshow, here we go. What are representational systems in high ticket sales? Well, check this out. There's three of them. There's a visual one, there's an audio one, and then there's a kinesthetic one. And so with most people, you're going to have one of these dominant modality representational systems. And again, like a personality profile, if you are like, let's go back to extended DISC, because that's the one that I teach, I'm most familiar with it. You would have a main characteristic, for example, high I, right? That's the flighty salesperson. Like I am a kind of a high I is my main one. And then I have secondary and third layers of the other types of personality profiling. Very similar in representational systems. If you're going to have one of these is going to be a dominant one. So you're either going to be dominant visual, dominant audio, dominant kinesthetic. So let's go through it, right? So these can be, there's really kind of three places where these happen, right? So when you're learning something, you're going to learn in a different representational system than you teach. You're going to teach in a different representational system as you conversate. And so depending on the context of where you are and what you're doing, think about this. If you're a sales pro having a conversation with a prospect, you're kind of teaching, kind of conversating. So your modality is going to be different than somebody that's learning information from you. And so what we need to do is during the conversation, be hyper critically aware of what they're doing. And so the question becomes like, how do we actually identify what one of these representational systems somebody has? Well, here's some of the characteristics that I wanted to walk through with you. So if somebody is a primary visual person, like meaning the visual aspect of what they are, what they do is like their modality. An example, if we're having a sales conversation, I always try to use that context because sales pro talking to prospect. So this is the sales pro talking to a prospect, and you're recognizing if this person is visual or not. Here's a couple of clues. First of all, if they'll stand or sit with their head or their body's pretty erect, kind of like mine, like pretty good posture. They'll be straight up and down, pretty normal. That's the first thing to look for. Secondly, they breathe from the top of their lungs. I remember when I was at Funnel Hacking Live, it's one of the hugest online conventions they have every year. Russell Brunson's one of my coaches, a dear friend of mine. He has this, he puts this thing together each and every year. It's an amazing event. And during one of the, I remember us sitting off the stage, and I was sitting next to a coach, a speaking coach, and one of the speakers came up on stage, and they were breathing from the top of their lungs, meaning very, very visual. My head went off, like, oh, that's a visual person. Like I could immediately see it, and you can see it, like if they breathe from the top of their lungs. And the speaking coach next to me goes, "Watch this. This person's going to get out of breath." And we were laughing back and forth, unfortunately for the speaker, because they were speaking so quickly and they were talking from the top of their lungs that they got winded and then they got out of breath. And he looked at me and he was like, "I told you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy that can happen." But people that breathe from the top of their lungs are typically visual. Look for that. They tend to be neat and organized. So if you have a chance to look behind them, look at their desk as you're talking on Zoom, always look for how neatly organized they are. Now, audio people and kinesthetic people don't really care about being neat. It's interesting. Okay. They memorize by seeing pictures. So if you recognize one of these people and you're doing some sort of a demo or a slideshow slideshow or something where you're sharing with them, go to the pictures, right? Don't go to words because words will just confuse them. If you do go to words, make sure they're very short and very big letters so people can see it and it's a visual word instead of just like trying to read text in a book, right? And typically these people are undistracted by noise. Now, you know the type. You're having a conversation and the dog's barking in the background or the baby's crying or there's some construction or beeping going on in the background. Like visual people typically don't get distracted. Audio people, you won't be able to do that with them. That's why you won't see very many visual people wearing headbuds on any sort of a Zoom call, right? Important to know that simply because if they're not wearing earbuds, I'm not saying it's 100% true, but people that wear headphones or earbuds or things like that, typically visual might not be their first modality. So it's just a clue, right? And so we want to play into that. And then appearances are important to them. They're always going to look sharp. They're going to look pretty well put together. And the last thing is this, right? Like when you're having the sales conversation and you're speaking to a primary visual person, they're going to be interested in how it looks, right? So in your languaging, in your NLP languaging, that neuro-linguistic programming, the languaging that you're using when you speak with them, we want to stay focused on words that are visual. Do you see how that could work? Are you looking at the right solution, right? And when we start using those visual words, I have a whole big list of them here because there's so many of them. Here's a few of them. So see, look, view, how does this appear to you? Do you like what I'm showing you? Can I reveal something else to you? Can you envision what this would look like? How about, can you imagine, right? That's another visual word. Imagine how this works. Is this foggy to you or is it crystal clear to you, right? When I'm talking to a visual person, these words circulate through my head and I'm trying to put as many of them as possible into my conversation because I know it's going to hit home with them. And when you do this, what you'll find is people will give you the lean in, they'll look at you and you'll start to close more deals. Promise, promise, promise. All right, let's go on to audio. What's the audio people? These are people that use their ears more than anything else, right? So when they are thinking, you'll see this from time to time. They'll whip their eyes back and forth, like really like a hair back and forth. No, it's your eyeballs back and forth, right? So look for the eyeballs to zip back and forth. I'm sure you've seen this before. That's usually a very good indicator that audio is going to be their first representational modality. They breathe from the middle of their chest. So you won't see the top of their chest puffing. You won't see their belly puffing, but you'll see their whole body kind of moving in and out. So look for that. They typically talk to themselves. So you'll make a point in a sales conversation and they'll stop and they'll be like, or they'll speak to themselves. When you see somebody doing that, again, a clue, their audio. If you see that, you want to use the cues that audios are going to listen to. They're very easily distracted by noise to the point where, again, if you're in a sales conversation, one of the things you really want to do is if you hear the background noise and you know that their modality is audio, be distracted by noise too. Do it on purpose, right? Be like, man, that's a loud beep, isn't it? Stop the conversation. It's a pattern interrupt. They'll focus on that beep for a second and say, before we can keep going, is there a way we can like quiet that out? Is there earphones or something else? When you do something like that and you get them to rescue you, right? Like that's a pro sales move, getting people to rescue you. But when you do this, they will fall in love with you, 100% guaranteed. Okay. They learn by listening and then memorizing by sequence. Typically, your audio style people are going to be more like your engineering type people. They memorize by steps. They love spreadsheets. They like sequence, right? And so when you get to the audio side of things, if you know that this is their modality, talk in that language, right? Just adapt yourself, be the chameleon as the pro sales guy or girl and work on that. So you know they're going to learn by listening. Speak slowly, speak clearly, enunciate your words properly. When you do this, they're going to love you, right? And then be like, hey, any follow-up messages that you're sending to an audio-based person, make sure you have a list, 1, 2, 3, so that they can see the sequence, right? That's the big key. Now, the words that you can use for auditories, right? Hey, hearing this, does it make sense to you, right? As you're listening to what I'm saying right now, how does that sound to you? Does this make music with you? Is this harmonizing with you? Let's see. Does this ring a bell, right? Ringing a bell, ding, makes a noise, right? So there's another one. Does this resonate with you? Is this falling on deaf ears? Those types of words are going to truly ring with an audio person. I got a whole list of them. In fact, I'll probably create a one-sheet cheat sheet on this so people can have it. And then let's move on to the last one, right? So they like to be told how they're doing. So if you know their audio, tell them they're doing a great job, right? Hey, I just wanted you to know from the sounds of what I've heard from the community, right? the sounds of what I've heard, like audio, everyone's saying how awesome you're doing. Congrats, man. That's fantastic. Very, very easy way to get right into really great rapport and hold rapport with them for a long period of time. Okay, let's move on to the last one here is kinesthetic. This is the feely, the touch, right? They typically breathe from the bottom of their lungs. So if you have the ability to see their stomach, it's going to puff out and in every time they're talking. So look for that. That's the first one. They talk and move very slowly, very methodically. They think through, they feel through their conversations, if you will, and then they'll come out with something and they'll say it very slowly so that they make sure it feels right when you hear it. Right? They respond to physical rewards and touching. They usually love when they get hugged or they get a high five, handshake. This is very important for these types of people. Do like a air bump, like, psh, hey, fist bump inside of the like bam, when you're doing, hey, let's do a Zoom fist bump or something. They would love that. They would laugh at that. It's kind of cool. They learn and memorize by doing. So again, what's important is if you know that their modality is kinesthetic and you're at this level where you can actually, comprehend all this stuff, then you know that they would need, these are the people that are typically saying, hey, can I get a free trial? Can I go through and test the thing? I'd like to feel how it works before I commit or whatever, right? And it must feel right for them to agree with you. So here's a couple of words. So how does that feel? Are you grasping this concept, right? Do you know how to, are you getting a hold of this? Are you catching on to what I'm saying? Have you tapped into this thought process? Turn around, hard, unfeeling, concrete. Is that concrete for you? Get a handle, and does that feel solid? Right. And so all of those words are going to be more so words that I would use with the kinesthetic person. And I usually, I've studied this stuff so much that it comes out of me. But again, think of the words. They're either visual, you can hear the words, or you can feel the words. That's going to be your baseline of how you move forward. And so here's a couple of pro tips that I want to share, and we'll get out of here real quick so you guys can be tuned up on ready to go today. First and foremost, listen to their speech patterns. As I mentioned, all those predicates, those words that I was just sharing, if you hear them saying those things, like if you hear them talking about, hey, have you heard about this? Or, hey, did you see that new thing? Those are quick indicators to know, oh, this person's audio, this person's visual. Man, I don't feel that right now. I'm not feeling that right now. Oh, okay, maybe kinesthetic, right? So listening to their speech patterns is another way very quickly to pick up on which modality that they use. So you think about the visual words, the audio words, and the kinesthetic words that I just talked about. Secondly, watch their body language, right? If they're sitting upright, they have good posture, and they're doing everything they need to do, they're going to be, probably more of a visual person. If they're relaxed and very casual, probably a kinesthetic person. And then, of course, if they're kind of fidgety and they're moving around and looking around, that's going to be the audio person, right? And again, as a pro tip, if you can comprehend doing all of this stuff during a sales call, I know it's a lot to take in. This is why it's more of an advanced concept in NLP. But if you can adjust how you're speaking and still deliver the message that you're working to deliver and speak in their filter, your rapport level will stay right on par. And then you'll be able to jump over the threshold, the action threshold. That's the place where they would give you a credit card. Very helpful to do. Okay. And with that said, my friend, you have just been tuned up. This is another wonderful high ticket tune up. I hope this was valuable for you. I know it's valuable for me. I use this stuff each and every day. Somebody said, hey, this is awesome, Sean. And then Maggie, love you. Thank you for said, you've just been tuned up in this NLP series. I hope it's been valuable for you. And guess what? I can't wait to see you next time.